Today, a Redditor shares an embarrassing story of forgetting to put their tooth in. We'll get into that and more mistakes, but first, today I messed up by bringing too much beer to a work party. 2 facts about me that are important to this story. 1, I was raised by an alcoholic, and 2, I don't drink alcohol. Last week, my boss asked me to pick up alcohol for a department party. I told her that I might be the wrong person to ask since I don't drink and hence don't know what people typically like or how much to get. She told me to just get whatever, it'll be fine, and she gave me the corporate credit card. So I try to think back to my childhood because I don't drink. I never hung out at bars in college, and the only measure I had regarding how much people drink was based on my dad. I remembered that it was usually by beer number 6 that dad turned into a pretty cheerful guy. This was so prevalent in my life that my brother and I called it the 6-beer smile. Note, my dad would not always stop at 6. He would sometimes drink 10 or more a day, so I thought, well, dad drank a lot, so I think we'll be fine with 5 bottles of beer per person since that's just one shy of a smile. I called my older brother to double check if 5 beers per person would be a sufficient amount of alcohol for a work party, and he agreed. Yeah, that sounds about right. The department has 40 people, so I ended up picking up about 34 6-packs. I got a variety because why not, and yeah, it cost a lot, but this company wastes money on plenty of other things. So I just assumed that this was just the cost of a party with alcohol. I loaded up my car, it took a long time, drove to work, and then carried everything to the large conference room that was reserved for the party. The party was yesterday evening. I really only stuck around for a little bit, made appearances to wave hi and say something to the higher-ups, so they knew I attended, and then I ducked out and went home early. I woke up to some text from my boss today consisting mostly of, "How much did you buy? The party is drowning." And finally, "There's more in the cabinets?" And yeah, when I initially dropped everything off, I ran out of space on the counter, so I put the rest in the cabinets. I asked a few friends why my boss was freaking out. They started laughing and reminded me that my dad is an alcoholic and I probably should have gotten just 2 drinks per person because that's way more normal for a work party. So I want to clarify, I'm a person that's basically never really had a drink. I've been around family members who dealt with addiction and it's just never been something that I've entertained. That said, even with such a little concept of drinking and how much people would drink, there's no way that I would think 5 drinks per person is the right amount. My number would probably still be off, but there's no way that I would be thinking, yeah, the average person drinks 5 beers at a work party. Outdoors Life 22 commented, "At my company parties, it's all you can drink beer and they don't run out. I work construction for a company with about 500 employees." Ladybug 0570 commented, "I work for a law firm. At one point, we shared a space with several other firms. Each attorney had a full bar in their office, and I'm not talking beer. Rum, whiskey, tequila, not a lot of wine either, come to think of it. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy Redditor confessions, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast." Our next story is, "Today I messed up by vomiting at a huge career-impacting speech because I was stubborn." Welp, all-time low for me. I'm a 28-year-old male, I suffer from cluster headaches, and for those who are unfamiliar, it's a neurological condition that is truly a 10 out of 10 on pain scale. I'm not going to pain dump, but it's important for context to understand that the pain you experience during a cluster period is absolute insanity. I'm C-suite in a mid-sized corporation. I got promoted extremely quick in a startup-esque company I joined back in 2021 and have been riding the wave since. This is a large, yearly conference for our industry that hosts just shy of 3,000 people. I was asked to be one of the main 4 speakers to represent our company, and I was ecstatic. I even flew my parents out. At rehearsal, I got my first headache and immediately went back to my hotel room for a triptan injection. After about 30 minutes of agony, I started to feel better, returned to the rehearsal just as it was wrapping up. I don't tell people I suffer from cluster headaches. The only people who know are my close family members and friends. At this point, the morning before my speech, I'm a nervous wreck. I feel like crap, and I can tell I have a headache coming on. I've managed to fight through them before, and I really didn't want to give up this moment, so I powered through. About 8 minutes before my speech starts, the headache hit me. Sweating, nausea, pain, it's getting progressively worse, but I just have to make it through 15 minutes of public speaking, no big deal. I go out onto the stage, walk up to the microphone, and at this point, I'm dizzy. I start speaking very slurred, and only a few words in, I start vomiting. I'm literally on my hands and knees, and thankfully I had a very loyal friend come out and help me off stage. I was accused of coming up drunk, awesome, stage fright, sweet, and loads of other things. Because no one knows I get cluster headaches, speculation is rampant within our company. Obviously, I will never get another opportunity to speak again at said industry event. I also currently have a headache. So make sure that you don't hide things like this, and don't go up and do a public speech with cluster headaches. I really feel like OP should be getting a pass here, especially after they make it clear that they deal with this. I actually have a friend who does deal with cluster headaches, and there's really not much you can do. I mean, look at what OP had to do. They had to get a triptan injection just to try to treat this thing. And even then, like OP experienced, it didn't really resolve the issue. It's definitely a horrendous condition to have, so a lot of leeway should be thrown OP's way. ERP1989 commented, "Hi, tell your coworkers at least. Also, show them the articles of doctors saying it's one of the most painful conditions known to exist. Don't let them assume awful things about you. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, but it's best to get ahead of the rumors. Maybe also reach out to some of the big names at your conference privately too." Chango812 commented this, "And tell them that you always power through them, which is why no one's noticed or needed to know. Even at the speech, you were trying to power through, but your body just wouldn't let you." Our next story is, "Today I messed up by accidentally exposing my grandpa's secret hobby at family dinner." So this happened last weekend during our monthly family dinner at my grandparents' house. My grandpa has always been super tech illiterate, so he asked me to help him set up his new tablet earlier in the day. While I was doing it, I noticed he had bookmarked some very unexpected websites. Think knitting tutorials and gardening blogs, but also a forum for conspiracy theories about squirrels taking over the world? I didn't say anything because, hey, everyone needs hobbies. Fast forward to dinner, and my grandma starts complaining about how grandpa spends too much time on his silly tablet. Trying to lighten the mood, and thinking it was harmless, I joked, "Well, at least he's not plotting against squirrels anymore." Silence. Dead silence. Turns out my grandma hates squirrels because they keep raiding her bird feeders, and now she thinks grandpa has been secretly feeding them as part of some bizarre truce. They got into this huge argument right there at the table about loyalty to birds versus squirrels while the rest of us just sat there, awkwardly eating pie. See, here's my biggest problem with this story is I can't decide if this is one of the beautiful things about the internet existing or one of the awful things about the internet existing. Empowering people like-minded to be able to come together in one place, form a community about squirrels taking over the world, I can't decide whether that's a beautiful thing or something that the internet needs to be burned down over. Sideshow G commented, "Birds don't have receptors for capsaicin, which is the active compound in spice or chili to give the burning sensation. So get grandma a huge tub of chili flakes, just the cheap stuff will do, and tell her to mix it with the bird food. It won't take long for the squirrels to work it out. Start off with a stronger dose, and gradually reduce it until you find the squirrel's tolerance levels, then bump it back up. Chilies evolved to take advantage of this, so only birds will eat them and poop out their seeds over a wide area. Humans are a bit freaky and thought, ow, it burns. Let's make some more." This next story is, "Today I fell asleep while working from home and missed an important meeting. I'm very tired lately and sleeping late is the reason, but today I decided to take a nap during my lunch break, but I didn't wake up." For people fearing this, yeah, your brain sometimes betrays you, and missed an important meeting where we were informed about our managers moving teams and having a new director. From the whole team, I was the only one missing. After getting into the call 20 minutes late, our manager was still kind to us, and that made me feel so bad, like I failed her. Hopefully this is the last time this happens to me. Such bad timing. I'm supposed to have our last one-on-one next week to say goodbye. So an OP situation, really there's not much else you can do at this point. I would say honestly try your best to let it go and just kind of focus on doing what you can in the meantime to make up for it. This next story is, "Today I messed up, remotely trapped a man from Facebook Marketplace over $30. I live in a village of 15 people and got a large lot of Dell 130-watt USB-C adapters really cheaply in a liquidation sale. I've had a marketplace listing for a long time and mostly just scammers. I'm not super motivated to sell them on eBay because there's something awesome about having a lifetime supply of solid Type-C adapters. I'm keeping them everywhere. I even kept spares in my cars just in case and have given a number to family members. They didn't cost much and they occupy a nice little box on the shelf. Fast forward to today's buyer. He's real, he is serious, and he's 45 minutes away, in the nearest city my wife happens to work in. My original plan was to send a new one with my wife to work on Monday, but he negotiated from $40 Canadian to $30, $100 retail, and thought she has one in her car, but it was recently opened, not in a new sealed bag. Maybe he can get one earlier and get it done now. My wife said that it should be okay, but had an important executive meeting until 2 o'clock. But 2:45 p.m. seemed safe to add a little buffer. I told him to call her when he arrived, and my wife would come to the employee entrance and make the exchange. At 2:20 p.m., my wife informed me that the meeting was going to run way over schedule. I passed the information on to the buyer to reschedule. Well, I guess he didn't see or was a little anxious for a good deal. He arrived and went to the secure employee entrance, and an employee on their smoke break happened to let him in the first set of 2 doors, which require badge in, badge out access. So this poor guy got trapped in a little 10 by 10 hallway over a stupid power brick. And my wife is in an important meeting, and really there's nothing I could do, being 2 hours in the opposite direction. So I regret getting my wife involved to do something for me, sending some rando to her work, and being part cause of rando drama of trapping a stranger in a box. He eventually got let out of the box. I offered to have her just drop it off at his house, but he's since gone non-responsive. I don't have an address, and he's about to miss that window of opportunity. So my question is, did they let him in and then nobody else just happened to show up for like the next hour? There's no like security or anything that might see them just sitting in this hallway? I mean, it's a little dramatic, but like what if this guy starts screaming or something? Somebody would come get him, right? I mean, it's not like he couldn't at least call like 911 unless he like left his phone in the vehicle. As Bulamighty commented, did the guy that let him in not let him out, or was he not able to know dude was trapped from the other side? OP responded commenting, I guess the guy who let him in either didn't expect that nobody was going to come for him. He was coming in from the smoke break, so he would have badged in outside, which unlocks both doors for a short period, and told him he could wait there out of the cold. To get out of the building normally, people badge out of the first set of inner doors, and both doors unlock for like 20 seconds. If you stay between the doors, you can badge in, badge out, or pull the fire alarm. This next story is, today I messed up by dropping my kid off at daycare. Today, I royally freaked up. This morning after my normal workout, I realized I'd left medically recommended bag of unopened marijuana I bought the previous day out on my dresser. Without thinking, I put the bag in my back pocket to take and put up in my lockbox. I continued my morning routine, got my young son dressed and his lunchbox ready, and loaded us up in the car. Went and dropped him off at daycare and headed to work. An hour later, I get a text from the owner of the daycare with a picture of my bag saying I dropped something. It gets worse though. Yesterday, we were awarded a $32,000 project for their new location. They're my brand new client. Thankfully, she seems very understanding and says her husband is a medical patient as well. I haven't stopped cringing since. Can't tell my wife or business partners, so Reddit it is. Look, I'm not judging OP, but I feel like if that's not a story you can share with your partner, is it truly the ride or die partnership that somebody deserves? Our next story is, today I messed up by accidentally calling a person old. Not actually today, but this still haunts me. I was working in a children's clothing store and they were running a big Grandparents Appreciation promotion, where grandparents got 30% off their entire purchase. The sale was super popular and the store was packed with older folks shopping for grandkids. We even had lots of moms drag their own parent along so they could take advantage and refresh their child's wardrobe with the grandparent discount. In fact, we didn't really have any customers that weren't using the grandparents discount, so as I rang customers up, I got into the habit of asking about their grandkids, and most were delighted to tell me all about them and show me pictures. You already know where this is going, right? This older lady walks up to the counter with an enormous pile of kids' clothes, obviously taking advantage of the discount, or so I assumed. With 2 little kids in tow, big customer service smile, and I say, "Hi, Grandma." She immediately narrows her eyes and says, "Excuse me?" But my brain is still not engaged, so I stupidly say, "Taking advantage of our Grandparents' Day promotion today? Looks like you found some great stuff." She stares me down and hisses, "What are you talking about?" Me, being an absolute moron, doesn't clue in that I'm clearly upsetting this lady, and instead goes on a ramble about how the Grandparents' Day promotion works and how lucky it is that she'll get 30% off for being a grandmother. She practically spits at me, "I'm their mother." Now, I have no idea how old she was. Maybe she just looked old and had old lady style and makeup. Maybe she was an older mom, but I swear she looked 60 and the kids looked like 4 to 6 years old. I still feel like a jerk, and this woman was big mad. She ended up reporting me to management for my bad customer service, but thankfully they just laughed at my stupidity. To be fair, if you're the manager and you get this complaint and you find out your employee says something like, "I'm just gonna be honest, they walked in, they had the hair and the makeup and the clothing style to look exactly 60s plus. So I said, 'Hi, Grandma,' and they got really upset." Would you really reprimand that person? Or would you just kind of laugh at the circumstance? Because I'm not gonna lie, I probably would just laugh. Crafty Commando commented, "Years ago, I was working at the front desk of a hotel. A youth hockey team was coming that night, and I was pretty busy. A woman checked in and told me that her mother would be in right behind her to check in next. I assumed the next woman who walked in was the mother. Without thinking, I asked her about it, and she got very upset because she was in fact not the mother, even though she did look older. She spent the next half hour telling all of the other hockey moms how much of a bad person I was for making this mistake." Our next story is, today I messed up by accidentally confessing to the wrong person. So this happened today and I want to disappear. I've had a crush on this girl for months. We text a lot, joke around, and sometimes she might flirt back, but I've never been sure. After overthinking for weeks, I finally decided to confess. I typed a heartfelt message, something like, "I don't know when it happened, but you've become really special to me. I like you a lot, and even if you don't feel the same, I just wanted you to know." I stared at my phone for 10 minutes, hesitated, and finally sent it. Then I threw my phone across the bed like it was cursed. A minute later, my phone buzzed. I grabbed it full of nerves, and then I saw it. I sent it to the wrong person. Not my crush, nope. I sent it to my friend. My male friend. The one who knows all my dumbest moments. The one who has seen me fail at life in real time. And his response? "Bro, same." What does that even mean? Now I'm just lying here questioning all my life choices. Send help. So I don't think there's gonna be a graceful way to handle this unless the friend is actually kind of joking. Like, I'ma be real, I have some very long-time close male friends of mine. Sometimes we'll make like jokes kind of in that direction. You know, the kind of absolutely dumb thing like, "Hey, tomorrow you wanna hang out, play some Rocket League, maybe kiss a little, you know, just some fun stuff with the boys." So like, I don't know OP's dynamic. Maybe it's a joking thing. Maybe there's a absolutely impossible to end gracefully thing where they are reciprocating. It'll be tough for sure if it's one of those, "I've been waiting for you to say that, bro." Thankfully though, OP posted an update. Today I messed up by accidentally confessing to the wrong person, part 2. So after recovering from my mini heart attack, I finally replied, asking him what he meant by "bro, same." He left me on read for 15 minutes. 15 long minutes. And then his response? Dang, that was deep. I felt every word. For a second, I panicked. Was he serious? Was this a double confession? Then he followed up with, "Nah, just messing with you. You're an idiot." Bro, I know. Then he laughed for a solid 5 minutes and said, "Honestly, I was hoping you would do something this dumb one day." Turns out this man has been waiting for me to slip up. And that's when I realized this man has been collecting my L's like infinity stones. After 10 minutes of non-stop roasting, he finally said, "Alright, don't worry, your secret is safe with me. After I remind you about this for the next 5 years. Great, just great. Anyway, I was actually supposed to send that to my crush, so yeah. Should I try again? Or should I just accept my L and move on? Do I have the guts for sending it to her? Well, let's just say, if I disappear after this, y'all know why. End of saga, I think. Well, it wasn't. OP posted, "Today I messed up by finally confessing to the right person." Alright y'all, you wanted part 3, you peer pressured me into this, so I actually did it. I finally confessed to my crush. So I told my homie this was actually meant for her. What do you think? He acted like I was an idiot, fair, and said, yeah, maybe tweak it a bit so it actually sounds like a confession and not a LinkedIn message. Do you even know how to flirt? I replied, no. He said, okay, let me help you before you embarrass yourself again. So with his highly questionable coaching, I rewrote the message. Hey, I have something to say, and I know I'll regret it if I don't. I've liked you for a while, and honestly, every time we talk, you make my day a little better. No idea if you feel the same, but I thought it was time to be honest with you. Then, the moment of truth, I triple-checked the recipient because I'm not about to speedrun another homie romance arc, took a deep breath, and hit send. And then, immediate regret. I threw my phone away like it was radioactive and just sat there contemplating my life choices. Then, after a few minutes, she replied. She said, wait, is this for real? I replied, yeah, it is. I've been overthinking it for a while, but I figured I should just say it. She took her sweet time replying after that, and by sweet time, I mean it felt like I aged 10 years in those few minutes, and then finally, oh wow, I didn't expect this. I mean, I never really saw you that way. And there it was, the gut punch. But I wasn't just gonna tap out, I had to at least try to save face. I replied, haha, yeah, I get that, just thought to shoot my shot. She replied, yeah, I really appreciate it, but I think we're better as friends. And boom, L received. I sat there staring at my phone, fake smiling at my own pain. Then I replied, of course, friends it is, no worries at all, smiley face. She replied, yeah, you're really sweet though. Am I sweet, or am I just a certified clown? Who knows? Then I told my beloved homie what happened, and this guy, instead of offering emotional support, just sent LMAO followed by, told you to use emojis, idiot. He is constantly teasing me like, bro, first you confessed to me, now you take an official L? This is absolute cinema. Yeah, glad someone's enjoying my pain. So yeah, this is where my story ends. I'm actually laughing at how ridiculous this all turned out. Fake crying too, don't worry. My friend is still laughing at me. And Reddit? Y'all are never convincing me to do this again. Never. Although some of you said that the universe was clearly trying to tell me not to do it, I still did and, well, now I'm here. So it didn't work out for OP, but here's the thing, if what they said is true, that they will live in regret if they don't at least give it a try, you at least know the answer, you at least tried. Although I have to admit, this post makes me think about all the times I'll see a woman post on social media about guy friends, and how frustrated they are that eventually it gets to the "I've been meaning to tell you something" text. And how frustrated they are that it seems like every time it eventually after like a week or two gets to a "I've been meaning to tell you something" text from the guy friend. Dirty Kumquat Nipple commented, really don't think emojis are the reason she rejected you. Also, not really a freak up. You shot your shot and it didn't work out. Cranky old dude commented, yeah, honestly. I mean, comedy of errors to get there, but if this whole story arc had started with the message you sent, it would have been a pretty good example of how these things should go. You shot your shot in a non-aggressive way, she let you down gently, you accepted it, thanked her, and moved on. You've probably been around Reddit to know how frequently components of that particular chain break down. Our next story is, today I messed up by forgetting my one fake tooth and deciding public humiliation wasn't worth it. So I just had one of the dumbest moments of my life. I drove to the mall, feeling all set for a productive trip. Wallet, keys, phone, everything checked. Parked the car, stepped out, and then I casually ran my tongue over my teeth and immediately realized my front tooth was missing. Yep, I forgot to put in my single tooth denture. Instant panic. I wasn't mentally prepared to walk around looking like I just survived a bar fight. I stood there for a solid minute debating whether I could pull off the confident, mysterious, toothless stranger look. Spoiler, I couldn't. So I got back in my car, sighed at my life choices, and drove straight home after paying for parking, of course. So is OP just like walking around in their day-to-day life with like a big toothy grin on their face? I'm gonna be honest, I've got relatively good teeth. I don't walk around showing my dentition all over the place. Like, I don't really know why I have this complex, but like I kind of go out of my way to not show my teeth. Leo Beer commented, due to reasons, I have a full upper set of dentures. I went to work having forgotten to put them in. My wife brought them to school for me, and until they arrived, I just wore a face mask. Our next story is, today I messed up by buying the wrong Xbox. I was super hyped for the release of Avowed. After balancing my budget with my monthly bills and expenses, I was able to have enough to buy something on the cheap on Marketplace. Found an Xbox for $110, talked the guy down to $70, no controller, but I figured that into what I'd need regardless, got one for a used price, so it wasn't too bad. Stayed up last night till midnight to play when I realized they weren't dropping it until 1 p.m. today. Kinda disappointed, I moved on with my day, took my son to school, played with my daughter. When 1 p.m. rolled around, I went to download the game, only for it to tell me it's not compatible. In my haste to secure a way to play, I didn't realize the game could only be played on Xbox Series X or S. F. Now, I don't know if it's like absolutely intentional and like they want to prey on the customers by confusing them and hoping they buy the wrong thing twice over, but I'm so glad to have the opportunity to just rip into Microsoft and Xbox for choosing such dumb naming conventions. For anybody that doesn't know, the history of the Xbox came out like this. They had the original Xbox, it's just Xbox. The second one was the Xbox 360, and then the third one they called the Xbox One. So there's already immediate confusion with the original Xbox and the Xbox One. Stay with me here, you're going to be confused. They then released two further versions of the Xbox One, the Xbox One S, then the Xbox One X. Then their next console, the next generation, Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S. So when you send mom to the store to buy the Xbox, they have to decide, oh, do I want the Xbox One, the Xbox One S, the X, the Series S, the Series X? I mean, even just Series S and Series X, like on the phone, sounds confusing. Honestly, that alone might be why PlayStation does so much better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you get that. Brookette5 commented, and this is why companies need to stick with a consistent and easy-to-follow numbering strategy. Narian Colds commented, preach, you want the latest model PlayStation? Get the highest number. You want the latest model Xbox? Time to bust out a spreadsheet to figure out. Our next story is, today I messed up by telling a customer they only want to hear themselves talk. Obligatory, this wasn't today but a couple of weeks ago. I, female, am a supervisor on the phones in a predominantly male-driven industry. When the going gets tough, I'm usually the one hopping on to de-escalate an unhappy customer. There are only a few women in my company, and one of them is also on the phones alongside me. We'll call her A. A is a sales rep, while I'm the only female in a position of power and the only supervisor on call 5 days of the week. So naturally, I tend to the unhappiest of customers. A passed along a request for a supervisor from customer J. She relayed his condescension, mentioning that he wanted to speak to someone who actually knows what they're talking about and not just reading off a script. Now, A may not understand all the technical reasonings behind what she says, but she is dang good at her job and has been dealing in the same industry for well over 3 years. She knows that what she's saying is fact, not opinion, and knows that she can stand firm in the policies she is relaying. Also, she has personally seen from experience people go against policy and get burned, meaning she has first-hand experience. I state all this for a reason. The customer had paid for training in our field, but was belittling A for not truly understanding what she was saying. I hop on with this customer and admit I didn't enter into the chat with honeydew in my voice. However, I allowed Jay time to explain the situation to me as I do for every customer. I always listen to previous phone recordings, so I'm well aware of what both parties said. Once he's relayed his half-truths and thrown out the fact that he's trained in this industry, I begin to explain to him the mechanics behind the policy he has paid for, only to find out that I was never actually speaking. Jay had never left the chat. He begins to speak over me every time I begin a new sentence. Just talks at me, through me, around me, over me, but never with me. If I begin a rebuttal, he quickly cuts me off to explain how my not yet completed thought is wrong. If I try to bring up a question or analogy to better help him understand, he simply raises his voice and repeats over and over the same idiotic thought he has already said. Now, I've dealt with idiots before. I've dealt with arrogance, rudeness, shortness, but I've never in almost a decade of working in this industry had someone speak as condescendingly arrogant as Jay did. Mind you, the training he went through, any idiot can pay for, and the training only speaks on a certain field of work which we do not operate in, but which we have passing interactions with. His argument that he's trained would be like me saying I understand how to train dogs when I've paid for an online class. It is in no way comparable to real-life experience. So as this man is raising his voice at me, speaking in high-pitched tones and throwing out the same words over and over like a toddler, my almost decades-long customer service hat flies right out of the window and I hear myself say, "Can I finish my thought, or do you just want to hear yourself talk?" Not my proudest moment, but it did get Jay to shut up long enough for me to finish my sentence. I went as low in my offer as my policy allows me to, but Jay wanted us to come out for free and repair the issue he made. I ended up having to hang up because every time I would try to get a final word in, he would just start back up repeating the same question over and over. "Are you gonna come out and do XYZ?" He threatened legal action and left us a bad review. Not worried, we have an almost perfect rating and legally speaking, we are bulletproof. But now my boss is going back to listen to the calls. Can't help but worry that this could reflect negatively on me, since I am expected to hold my emotions in place as one of the few women in my field. I know that we're supposed to grin and bear it in the customer service field, but there's nothing worse than someone talking down to you when you could walk circles around them in a standoff. Definitely feeling regretful that this is the call my bosses will know me most for. Customer service is one of those just absolutely thankless jobs. Like, you're not going to tip the customer service person. Most customer service people are going to feel like lucky when they get a customer that says please or thank you or isn't just immediately impatient. That said, I have no love for companies who do not fully properly equip their customer service people. When I need legitimate customer service support, like I had a medical thing going on that I needed direct actual help on, and I could tell that I got connected to some very cheap outsourced customer service thing that had literally no way of even being able to understand the problem I have, let alone troubleshooting it. It's like, what are we doing here? And they even escalated me, and their higher-ups were still just as incompetent and inequipped to do any kind of the lookup or information or anything that I needed about their company. People who lack emotional regulation and companies that really screw over their own customer support reps, those are the problems. Bearded Pip commented, "Been there, done that. Customer service can be brutal. Hopefully your boss sees this as the outlier that it was, and that this guy was extra special. If you get dinged for this, don't let it ruin your day. Always remember to let the good customers make your day, and forget the jerks as soon as possible. This guy was a jerk, and this interaction isn't you." Our next story is, today I messed up by just taking a nice stroll to McDonald's? To understand this story, I'm a totally blind person who has never seen a thing in my life. Here's the story of the war on tights. Hello, I just thought that you should be initiated into the club of terribly hilariously god-awful crap that happens during random mobility adventures that you try by yourself. So today I walked to McDonald's. I was hungry, very lonely, very bored, so I decided, yeah, I could totally walk to McDonald's, and so I do. And I'm very nicely and calmly eating my food. Then I was about to leave, and literally the worst thing that could possibly happen happened. I had to fart. It was not a fart, and I was wearing tights, and I was freaking broke, so I had to, without any help, walk home in diarrhea tights. There was no cover from any building, no shadows. It was 12 noon. It was very sunny, and do you know what? I spent like 30 minutes in the McDonald's bathroom dying of laughter so hard that some random lady came in, heard my demonic snorting laugh, and very hurriedly left the bathroom. Which just made me laugh even harder. It was terrible. I survived the walk of shame. I lost the war against my digestive system, but I won the war of shame itself. I just walked out of there like nothing was wrong and just tried my best to walk as casually as possible without both dying of laughter and embarrassment and not crying. It was one freaked up day, and I somehow walked home, so now you know. I hope this also cracks you up. So I know the story is a lot to take in, and it's even crazier to just kind of brush by it, But can I just take a moment to point out how awesome it is that in this day and age, somebody who is completely blind is able to go on Reddit and post the story themselves? The amount of accessibility options in phones nowadays and how well they work, like the screen reader and whatnot. The fact that somebody who is completely blind is not prevented from sharing on Reddit their story of crapping themselves in tights and walking home is kind of a beautiful thing. Although I do gotta admit, I love one response that says, at least OP doesn't have to see any of those people again. Personal26317 commented, OP keeps on walking, world keeps on smirking, pants keep on leaking, until she reached the higher ground. Our next story is, today I messed up by throwing up on my crush. This happened a while ago and I just can't seem to get over it. I was having friends over for drinks on a Friday night. This specific crush is someone who I'd been trying to get in a mutual setting so I could get closer to them, get to know them with less pressure. I was insanely nervous the entire day leading up to this night. I was acting jittery out of nervousness and excitement. I'm not sure if you've ever mixed those two emotions with alcohol, but if you haven't, let me save you now by saying, do not do it. The time comes where people start coming over to my one-bedroom apartment where this party is taking place and we start taking shots. I take probably 6 shots in the hour it takes before this man arrives. When he gets there, he looks at me and my mind goes blank. I fall to the ground and he asks me, "You good?" I run to the bathroom where my best friends meet me as I vomit into the toilet, hoping this will pull me back together. A good puke and rally. After I'm done vomiting, she sits on the toilet and wax from a candle spills everywhere. Just a funny little side story. This was due to my toilet being wobbly. Poverty is a hoot. We clean it up and make it back out to the living area where everyone is listening to music and chatting. I look at him in the eyes again, and the anxiety, pink Whitney and champagne are mixing in my stomach. I turn around to walk to my bedroom to compose myself. I collapse onto my floor unconscious where my best friends line my back with crystals. She leaves the room and I'm left alone with my crush who came to check to see if I was okay. I throw up all over his socks. He doesn't say anything, takes them off, cleans it up and tells me, "It's okay." The entire night replays in my mind. I also throw up on my best friend this night as well. Don't want to discredit her traumatic journey of my drunken mess. Now, I don't really want to be the person to come out here and say maybe OP has a problem, but I will say definitely when you're having tough emotions, I would imagine trying to turn to alcohol to combat those is not necessarily the most foolproof plan. Rick and Toasted commented, 6 shots in an hour? Girl, unless you drink liquor every day, that's a lot to do before the crush arrives. You want him to drink with you, right? Have you seen him since or done something like gift him new socks? That would be a funny way to apologize and see him again. This next story is, today I messed up by trying to make vodka sauce. I live in a residence hall and there's a campus-wide no alcohol policy. I'm not a drinker, so whatever, but sometimes I do use alcohol to cook. I was craving pasta with vodka sauce the other day, so I made plans to cook some tonight so I could share it with my friends. I didn't really think too much about the no alcohol policy. We're not allowed to cook in our rooms, but there is a communal kitchen in the building. Nobody ever uses it, but today there was someone in there doing their own crap. Didn't really think twice about it and took ingredients out of my bag, including the vodka, and started chopping veggies. Big mistake. That person was an RA, and she noticed the alcohol when she turned around. Immediately had to dump out all the alcohol, and she recorded my name and ID so she could report me to the dean. Not sure what happens from there. So I think the problem here is going to be the amount of vodka. Because I feel like it's a pretty plausible deniability thing to say, oh, you were only using it as a cooking ingredient. But if you don't have only just enough for whatever you're cooking and it's going to be assumed you're still going to have this vodka, where does the leeway really kind of start and end there? Highly unlikely's commented, just be remorseful with the dean. Say because the no alcohol policy is for drinking, you didn't realize you couldn't use it to cook with, and that's a mistake you won't make again. Throw in some cultural stuff and family history, etc. Maybe even get your mom to write a letter to the dean. If you go over the top, it was an accident, not to be repeated, I'd expect that they'd have some mercy because, like you said, you weren't drinking it and that wasn't the purpose for the vodka. Vince666 commented, are you all over 21? What kind of policy is this even? If you really wanted to drink it, it would be so easy to hide it. I could understand someone being bothered if you were wasted, but this merely is an ingredient. Are people going around sniffing your water bottles? They might contain vodka. I'm just at awe about the ridiculousness of the situation. Highly Unlikely's replied to that, I'm in my 30s. I got in trouble in college for smoking weed with friends in a dorm room. At the time, I was a dumb college student and not remorseful. My punishment was to write a paper. I unapologetically wrote a weed should be legal paper, which came back to haunt me in a not so glamorous way. Hence why I recommended the butt kissing of the dean. The college crap will likely be documented forever somewhere if the powers that be in place want to background check your butt like no other. Happened to me. I agree this policy is stupid as freak. It's college and students will find a way. If OP really wanted to drink, they could do it privately in their dorm or anywhere else but a shared kitchen. The RA just has a stick up their butt, but saying that to the dean isn't going to win any trophies or lessen repercussions. Our next story is, today I messed up by sitting like an idiot. This happened from last night to early this morning. We need some background first for everything to make sense. My 16-year-old male mom just got back into the dating field and she's been seeing this one guy since March of 2024. I live in a two-family house in the upstairs apartment. Every weekend he either comes to our apartment or she goes to his. This weekend she went by his, so I was left alone. The rule is that if there's an emergency, I call my grandmother since she lives downstairs. I usually just mess around while I'm home alone and fall asleep really late. I ended up getting out of bed at around 8:30 to do a paper craft since I saw a tutorial online and I was struggling with this specific craft for a while. I got everything I needed and sat at the table. For context, I was sitting with one leg under the rest of my body, so it ended up falling asleep. This is important. Now, usually when I craft, I throw everything out at the end, but tonight I decided to throw out the paper scraps I already had so it wouldn't be as messy. Here's where I freak up. I stand up and notice that my leg is completely numb. I don't think anything of it since I've walked with a numb leg before. I get a few steps in before I collapse under my own weight, roll my ankle, and fall on the floor. Now, I've had my fair share of nasty falls due to a medical condition, but this crap hurt. I start crying from the pain and freaking out. I crawled over to the couch and waited for the pain to go away, but it wasn't going anywhere. I crawled over to the table, grabbed my phone, and call my grandma. She comes upstairs and my ankle is swollen. She tells me to call my mom. I do and go to the hospital. They didn't think anything was wrong, but they just wanted to make sure. I get my x-ray done and the doctor comes in to explain. Turns out my little fall caused me to get a hairline fracture in my ankle. They give me a boot, crutches, and discharge me from the hospital, and now I'm out of school until the 9th of March. I never did get to finish my paper craft, and my ankle still hurts like heck. So I genuinely do really feel for OP. Back in high school, I was playing basketball in just gym class. I jump up to grab a rebound, I come down and land on somebody's foot, roll my ankle, feel a pop. It's a grade 3 ankle sprain, which basically means I completely tore the ligament in my ankle. There's just no fun or any kind of getting over that embarrassment of being a spectacle or feeling like you could have done something better. Especially in my case where you have to make that walk of shame trying to limp off in front of all those other people in the gymnasium. And I certainly did limp off under my own power all the way on the bum ankle. Our next story is, today I messed up by buying the wrong book for a child's birthday. Technically this happened last weekend, but I didn't get the fallout until today, so forgive me. I was supposed to go shopping with my sister-in-law last weekend, but her husband got COVID, so she had to quarantine. I decided to go out on my own and went to Barnes & Noble. When I got there, I got a text from sister-in-law asking what store I was at. I told her, and she asked if I could pick up a book for her nephew's birthday on Thursday, since she was quarantined and wouldn't be able to get out. I asked if he would like a book because I was at a bookstore, and she said he was a big reader. Score! I asked what kind of books he likes, and she only said chapter books. So I didn't have much direction. It has to be said that I'm not a kid person and really have no idea what's appropriate for kids' gifts when they're over a certain age. I also forgot to ask her nephew's age, and for some reason I thought he was an older teen. I was at Barnes & Noble's to get the latest Grady Hendrix novel. I really liked his stuff, and I thought that, hey, Twilight was a thing, so kids these days probably like vampires, right? So I grabbed a copy of The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. A local scout troop was also there doing a wrapping donation thing, so I paid them to wrap the present so my sister-in-law didn't have to. When I got home, I called her and told her that I picked up a book and wrapped it, and she was thankful and said she would pick it up on Wednesday. I didn't tell anyone what book I got. I ended up being at work when my sister-in-law came by, so my husband did the handoff. This morning, I got a call from sister-in-law and her first words were, "What was that book you got?" I told her it was a book about vampires and asked if her nephew didn't like vampires. I then learned 3 things. Her nephew is 11, he's a bit of a scaredy cat, he absolutely must finish every book he starts. Apparently no one else at the party had heard of Grady Hendrix, and the kid was a big reader, so he started reading it. If you haven't read it, there's a scene where, spoiler, someone gets killed by rats. The scene's not too graphic, but it is still freaky. According to sister-in-law, her nephew has been having nightmares since he read that scene and refuses to sleep alone. My sister-in-law is in hot water with her sister-in-law, and this has caused a lot of friction. I told her she can blame me completely, but apparently this has brought out some underlying family drama, and now my sister-in-law is not talking to her sister-in-law or mother-in-law. She said she would give me more details the next time we met. I would imagine most people here can agree with me that where OP went wrong was not further discussing this book. If somebody gives you the feedback of they like chapter books and that doesn't really give you a lot to go on because who would it actually give much information to? If you select something, especially that might be controversial for a kid, you probably should have reached back out and been like, how about this? Is this okay? Now that being said, and this may be controversial of me, I don't know, but I feel like depending on the 11-year-old kid, something like that Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires might not even be a bad choice for a kid like that, but it depends on like their tolerance of those topics. And the reason I say that realistically is how many times as a kid did you want to watch an action movie, or maybe your parents allowed you to watch a movie that you probably aren't actually in the age range for? Or for example, like how many kids growing up played Grand Theft Auto and aren't horrible people because of it? I don't think a little fiction book, if the kid can handle it, is really going to do much. Secrets commented, "My book club read that book, and we were in our 20s and 30s. Knowing the book, I cannot imagine a timorous 11-year-old reading it. Sister-in-law should have clarified what chapter books are. I've never heard this term either, especially since the kid is entirely a stranger to you, and you should have been a bit more curious. Look it up on your phone or ask a staff member. I hope it didn't start too much of a drama though." Our next story is, "Today I messed up by crashing my brother's truck the day before I officiated his wedding. I, female 24, was visiting home from out of state for my brother's, male 30, wedding he had asked me to officiate. The wedding was just days before I turned 25, and my brother, knowing I would need a way to get around, generously offered me his truck since he would be on his honeymoon after the wedding. The day before the wedding, my +1, my old college roommate, and I decided to run to a local grocer and then to the recreational dispo. I had recently moved from a legal state to a medical state and had plans with friends later in that week, so this stop was important. After grabbing our groceries, we headed to our next destination. While on the expressway, I almost missed my turn and, without thinking, or more accurately, thinking like an idiot, I tried to catch it last minute. I ended up crashing into the guardrail, which bounced us into another guardrail. Thankfully, both my friend and I were okay, but the truck was a mess. Legally, I was in the clear after the police report was filed, but I felt terrible. I paid my brother's fee for a rental car as he still had to get around some before his honeymoon and covered the insurance premium to get the body fixed right away. Currently, I'm repaying my brother for the increase in insurance each month as they're financially strapped after finishing school, one a master's and the other a doctorate, and having a large wedding. The damage was all cosmetic, but it looked bad. This all happened the day before I was supposed to officiate his wedding while staying at his house and using his truck for free. That night was rough. I'm sure it would have been stressful even if I hadn't crashed his truck, but now especially so. My now sister-in-law drove my friend and I to another friend's apartment who was also attending the wedding and happened to live near the venue just to give my brother a little break from me. That night we played our D&D campaign and I rolled a 1 on a death save. After that, I went to bed. The next day we all acted like nothing had happened at the wedding, as it should have been. The wedding was amazing and beautiful. We never talked about the accident, other than my Venmo transactions to him. You know, I just know, after reading this story, it's going to stick in my head for a while every time I'm like frantically trying to find out where the next exit is on Google Maps. It's not really quite so much the labeled exits that I have trouble with, but those turns onto those side roads, especially the ones that don't have street signs. You definitely get better at estimating the turn over time as you use it more, but sometimes those turn left in 1,000 feet becomes really confusing when there's like a possible left turn and there's also a stoplight just slightly further ahead. All I'm trying to say is I don't want to get friendly with any guardrails in my near future. Space Mouse 21 commented, "You messed up, but you also stepped up and owned your mistake. Congratulations. Glad the wedding went well, lessons learned, and sounds like the universe wanted you to not get weed that day." Our next story is, "Today I messed up by running in the teacher relay race. This happened on Friday, so I'm still sore, both my body and my pride. I'm a teacher at a large high school. We had our whole school athletics day on Friday, and I was pumped. I was dressed up in my house colors, ribbons, and face paint and all, and had a great day being a judge on the track. I think watching kids race around all day gave my 35-year-old self a whole lot of false confidence. The teacher relay race is announced. I'm asked to run. I agree despite having slides on. No problem, I'll run in bare feet. I also have not literally sprinted 100 meters in about 20 years, but I don't worry about that. It's just running, right? I'm up first and the race starts. I'm running as fast as I can, but I can sense I'm being passed pretty quickly. No problem, I'll speed up. But while my legs start pumping faster, my body just doesn't. I'm all out of whack and almost in slow motion, I go down like a sack of bricks. Full flail, outstretched arms skidding along my face in front of 2,000 students, my colleagues, and God. Now I've had the weekend to feel all the aches and pains this absolute faceplant has resulted in, and I have an absolutely horrific case for the Sunday scaries. I am not looking forward to being roasted for the rest of the year for this. So I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a person who runs very much, and I fully felt every word OP said here. If you've gone a sizable amount of time without ever running and you try to do like a full sprint, I mean, I don't know if it's just me and OP here, but like your sense of balance is just so screwed up. It is so easy to just start tumbling. Like I remember one time in the last couple years, I had like a really good sprint and I was doing really good for the first like 20 feet or so. But after that point, it starts becoming a gamble whether or not your feet can even keep up with the pace or your balance can be maintained. Felt like I ended up looking like one of those videos where the guy just keeps stumbling over and over until they inevitably faceplant into the back of a car. Thinky Sai commented, "Perfect opportunity to use this as a lesson on getting back up after you fail." Lots of kids could use that message. Don't avoid it. Let them know that it's okay to take chances even when you don't win. Our next story is, "Today I messed up by telling a rabbit folktale in a more authentic version. This morning, as I do every Saturday, I read to kids for a library store time. In our program, we always try to do an oral folktale with the books, and all of our 3 or 4 stories fit into a theme. Today's theme was hard work, because there's a holiday in my country this week, the name of which literally translates as celebrating after hard work, Mashramani. I chose a folktale from China that was about a rice farmer who abandons working his field when a rabbit accidentally crashes into a tree next to him and dies, and so he eats the rabbit and sells the skin. I considered changing the animal to something local like a deer or goat, but ultimately decided that the point of telling international folktales was to let kids experience a wider world, and there are no rabbits where we live, so rabbits would be kind of exotic. So I left the rabbit in. The first sign that something was wrong was when I mentioned that the rabbit died after crashing into the tree. The kids seemed deflated. That's when I said the farmer took the rabbit home to eat it. One 6-year-old said, "Oh no, no!" Then I mentioned the farmer skinning the rabbit, and more kids got an aghast look. Thankfully, the rest of the story did not involve rabbits, so we moved on. Except, once the story was over, I started to introduce the next story, a book all about a family who fixes up an old house to live in it. But after missing it during a week of preparation, I finally realized my programming error. The next book was Bunny Bungalow, a cheerful story about a cute rabbit family complete with little anthropomorphic rabbits, including baby rabbits. I did the only thing I could, which was pretend like nothing was discordant and just read it with gusto. Thankfully, they seemed to get immersed after a while, but the start was a bit rocky to judge by the faces. This old farmer, man, that rabbit crashed into the tree and just died on impact. It was an explosion, and then they skinned it and they sold it. There's a lot about hard work to learn there, kids. By the way, this next book is Bunny Bungalow, about a cheerful rabbit family. Don't worry though, there's no trees for them to tragically crash head on into. Our next story is, today I messed up by putting a magnet on my laptop. For some reason, my laptop refuses to turn on no matter what I did. I even let it run out of power, but when I tried to turn it on, the screen would turn back off. But the keyboard would still light up, so I didn't know what was wrong. This wouldn't be as much of an issue if I didn't have a paper due by midnight and I only had 30 minutes. It was pretty much done, but I still have to edit it, but yeah. It wasn't until 10 minutes before 12 that I realized I had a magnet on it, and the moment I took the magnet off, the screen was working again. I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced this, but yeah, I almost committed an assignment with 10% of my grade late because I had a magnet on my laptop and I didn't know that that was why the display wasn't working. So I feel like this is pretty common knowledge, but if anybody out there doesn't know, magnets are not good around electronics. In fact, I remember as a kid being told this exact same thing, but for like the tube TVs, the CRTs. Like it could damage the picture and all the colors would be all warped and incorrect. A harmless fly commented, "The sensor to determine if the monitor is shut is a magnetic one in most laptops. It thought it was shut." P.S. Magnets will ruin a hard drive or a CRT TV if they're strong enough and near. It's funny to think that your generation isn't nervous to get magnets near a computer because of SSDs. Wesadecahedron commented, "The fun part of school IT is students stacking laptops and getting confused when they can't use the one at the top of the stack because the one below it has triggered that sensor." Our next story is, today I messed up by not checking if the store gave me back my whole charger. This goes from yesterday into today. So for context, I'm a university student and I need my laptop since all my stuff is on there. A while ago, I got the shock of my life when my laptop stopped charging and wouldn't turn on. Luckily, we figured out the issue was the charger, not the laptop. So me, my boyfriend, and my mom went to a store whose name I will not name where we got the laptop from. We still had a guarantee. Now, the poor employee had to deal with my mom trying her best to get me a replacement charger for the time being, but they told us they don't have any and that we'll have to buy one and give it back in 28 days. Well, we still could, and repeat that until the charger's fixed. Sucks, but fine. We go into the store, ask for the charger. They don't have the €15 charger, only the €40 other brand one. I still pay for it and we head home. The new charger has a faulty connection and cannot charge when my laptop's turned on. I deal with this for 26 days. Fast forward to yesterday, we go in, give the new charger back, and I receive the old one. I think, oh, this is really light, and don't think to check it. I sign everything. Today, just 10 minutes ago, I decided it was time to charge it. I get the charger, look at it, half of it is missing. I honestly laughed out loud because you wouldn't believe how much crap like this happens to me. I am God's jester. I play for his amusement, and yet again, I am put into dumb situations like these. So I call the hotline and, while laughing, explain that I only got half of the charger. Could I maybe have the other half back too? Funnily enough, they only gave me the freaking part that didn't need fixing anyways. Will I ever get my dang charger back? I don't know. I'm ordering a cheap brand one off of Amazon now and learning from my mistakes, and will now cry over the weekend, I guess. To be honest, I never had a laptop in the last like 15 years, so I'm trying to understand how you get half of a charger. Like, what do they give OP, just a cord? I think wherever they bought this laptop from, they've got some kind of stupid proprietary system that would make me just immediately switch away from it going forward. Because honestly, in 2025, should we be at the mercy of, my laptop charger stopped working, now I can only charge it if I go back to the store and get it replaced? Like, it might be slower than an AC/DC charger, but you should just be able to pop in any old USB-C and charge from that. Or do the novel thing and be able to buy an equivalent AC charger or whatever. Our next story is, today I messed up by making myself scared of minesweeper. This is so stupid. I like to relax by listening to scary stories on YouTube. You know, those deep-voiced narrators talking about skinwalkers in national parks, glitches in the Matrix. Good stuff. For months, I paired this with playing Minesweeper to keep my hands busy. It was a nice little routine. Somewhere along the way, my brain decided that Minesweeper is the horror story. Now, when I open the game, I get this weird sense of dread. My internal dialogue of, okay, either this square is a bomb or this one, but not both, is unnervingly tense. And when I click on a mine, I flinch. Now I'm trying everything I can to make it not creepy, but I love horror content so much. Cry. I wonder if it would be the same thing for like games that have a Minesweeper-esque minigame. There's a game I used to play from my childhood that has a Minesweeper-esque minigame inside of it. It's actually like a 3D third-person game, but there's like a platform that you step on that has a Minesweeper-esque minigame. Like imagine that fear is so deeply rooted now that like in this cartoony world, even like the minigame of Minesweeper is enough to like start making you sweat. Mr. Big Boy'll Eat Food commented, "Holy crap, the same thing happened to me, except I was listening to one while taking a poo. I then recognized a pattern on the floor, which I hadn't before, and now every time I take a poo, I notice it and feel dread." P.S. I would recommend Dark Somnium, as he really tells the stories with passion, as he makes his own music for it and even brings in smaller talents for different character voices. Our next story is, Today I Messed Up by Kayaking with Alligators. So my girlfriend and I recently have taken up kayaking in Central Florida. It's been a great way to get outdoors, get some exercise, and see some beautiful nature. So last night, we decided we wanted to try a new spot rather than our usual go-to. A little variety never hurt anyone, right? I started looking up lakes in the area and come across this old post talking about Lake Jessup. The post mentioned the possibility of gators, but hey, we live in Florida. Gators are everywhere. No big deal. We're used to the occasional gator sighting while kayaking, and they usually keep their distance. So without much more thought, we load up our kayaks and head to the lake. The first red flag should have been the looks we got when we pulled up to the boat ramp. People stared at us like we had just announced we were about to go for a swim with a bunch of angry piranhas. But no one said anything outright, and I figured maybe they were just surprised to see a couple of kayakers rather than people fishing or taking a boat out. As we paddled out, I noticed how murky the water was. Not too unusual for Florida, but it was definitely darker than what we were used to. There were also quite a few logs floating near the shore, or at least that's what I thought at first. We spent a good 2 hours out on the lake, paddling around and enjoying the peacefulness. During that time, we noticed other people fishing along the shore, but everything seemed normal. No one was acting overly cautious or pointing out any potential dangers. It wasn't until we got home and started doing more research that the sheer horror of what we had done just hit us. Lake Jessup is infamous for being one of the most alligator-infested lakes in Florida, with an estimated 13,000 alligators in it. Yes, you heard that right, 13,000. There are more gators in that lake than there are people in most small towns. In fact, it's often cited as one of the most dangerous lakes in Florida, and we had unknowingly spent 2 hours kayaking right on top of them. When I went back to reread the post that had originally mentioned this lake, I noticed something that I'd somehow missed. It was from 13 years ago, which means either this lake has always been a death trap or it's gotten even worse since then. I had no idea we were paddling around in such an alligator haven. For all I know, we could have been circled by them the entire time, and we never saw a single one. I guess that's what makes it so terrifying. We were completely unaware of how many predators were lurking just below the surface. So yeah, today I messed up by accidentally kayaking on an alligator-infested nightmare of a lake. Lesson learned, always double check your sources, do your research, and maybe stick to places that don't require you to keep an eye out for prehistoric murder logs. This takes me back to the time I was in like a summer camp-esque thing when I was just a kid. I was probably like 11, 12. They had these little 2-person pedal boats and a lake at the camp. So essentially it's kind of like a 2-sided bike, but instead it's a boat. There's 2 pedals on either side. You can drive the boat or you can actually change the direction with one person pedaling. It wasn't until after about an hour or 2 of having fun pedaling this boat around and we get back off that we find there's an alligator in the water and another one just chilling on the other side of the lake. I feel like there's a pretty important reason I'm missing that they wouldn't let us back onto the pedal boats after that point. Prudent Candidate 566 commented, "My mom recently told me a story from when she was a surveyor in the South Pacific with the Naval Oceanographic Office. She was the only woman on the crew, so she would often try to find some privacy to bathe. She was walking down the beach and saw some logs she could change between and then get in the ocean for a quick dip. She got about 30 feet away from the closer log when it stood up and walked into the ocean and swam away. Then the other did the same. They were saltwater crocodiles, each about 20 feet long. Nose and R commented, "Where I grew up, there were alligators in nearly every lake, so I was pretty used to seeing them hanging out getting some sun. One afternoon, I saw an alligator on the bank of the opposite side of a lake I was walking past, so I stopped and took a few photos. I didn't have a long lens with me at the time, so I crossed a bridge to get a little closer, but didn't intend on getting dangerously close or anything. When I got to the other side, near where I thought it was, I didn't see anything, so I figured it had decided to go back in the lake. Then I heard the terrifying hiss/growl thing they do. Turns out the bank was just steep enough to completely hide this 10-foot-long alligator from view, and it was now way too close. Decided that was a great time to see how fast I could run away. Had some bad dreams about alligators for a little while after that. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Redditor confession, check out that video on the left. Or, if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.